Tonight on the Northwestern News Report, let it go. After a weekend of frozen temperatures, the latest on how Northwestern is dealing with the frigid weather.
Evanston sued. We talk with the former city employee who's suing Mayor Biss and other officials for wrongful termination.
And returning with a splash, the nation's largest student-produced musical hits the stage this weekend. We take you behind the scenes at the Dolphin Show.
Those stories and more tonight on the Northwestern News Report.
It's your news
right now.
Good evening and welcome to the Northwestern News Report. I'm Alexi Cadota-Browner.
And I'm Ananya Chug.
We're coming to you tonight from our warm studio as temperatures outside continue to hover in the single digits. The combination of frigid weather and in-person classes on Tuesday put some students in an icy mood.
From the Midwest, you're used to some level of cold, but this over the past couple of days has just been borderline insanity. I mean, you can see my hands, they're still red, and I've been inside for a couple of minutes now, so it's really, really bad. I think somebody in my dorm got minor frostbite a couple of days ago.
Northwestern is providing frostbite shuttles today and tomorrow, and advising students to take precautions like wearing proper gear and warning of risks like hypothermia and frostbite. The National Weather Service saying frostbite is possible when exposed to the elements for 10 to 15 minutes. Cold winds are hitting hard, with temperatures in Evanston dropping to -9 degrees Monday. It's the coldest air mass in the Chicagoland area in 5 years, since 2019 when temperatures reached 23 below zero. A couple inches were enough to blanket campus ahead of the weekend's freeze. The city of Evanston is also offering extended hours for warming shelters at these 3 locations until Sunday. A weather advisory is still in effect until early tomorrow morning.
And in the face of severe winter weather, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is issuing a plea to Texas Governor Greg Abbott to stop sending migrant buses and planes to the Chicago area. In a letter Friday, Pritzker acknowledges common ground in wanting federal immigration reform, but accuses the Texas governor of choosing to, quote, sow chaos in an attempt to score political points.
Pritzker says the current weather and the fact that migrants often lack coats and shoes appropriate for the snow are part of the concern. Shelters are also full because of migrants sent by Abbott. Meanwhile, Northwestern's Latina and Latino Studies program is hosting a clothing drive for migrants through the end of the month. The program invites people to donate gently used winter items and new personal essential hygiene products. More information about the drive can be found on their Instagram page at NU Latinx Studies. A week after voters in Illinois filed a petition to bar Trump from the state's primary ballot, the bitter cold didn't stop Iowans from delivering Donald Trump a big win in last night's Iowa caucuses. Trump received 51% of the vote, the most support any non-incumbent Republican candidate has ever received in Iowa. The fight for second place ending with Ron DeSantis winning 21.2% of the vote and Nikki Haley finishing close behind with 19.1%. The Illinois petition to bar Trump from the state's primary ballot is due to his role in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Colorado and Maine have already removed the former president from their ballots, the Supreme Court announcing earlier this week that they're preparing to hear appeals for these cases. The Illinois primary is slated for March 19th.
From the fight for the top spot in federal government to a dispute in Evanston city government, former Evanston employee Liam Byrd filed a federal lawsuit on Friday against the city, Mayor Daniel Biss, and others. According to the lawsuit, he says he was fired in late December for expressing his sympathy for the plight of Palestinian people in Gaza. NNN's Logan Schijano sat down with Byrd and his attorney exclusively on Monday.
It was shocking.
Liam Byrd didn't expect to be here. Sitting aside his lawyer, fired from his job as Evanston's manager of organizational performance and equity less than 6 months after he was hired.
Why are you suing Mayor Biss, Manager Stowe, Alex Ruggie, the city?
We're focusing in on First Amendment retaliation.
Byrd says in an October 10th meeting, city leaders like Biss voiced support for Israel following the October 7th attack.
I believe that we need to address all forms of hatred and bigotry, anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia. But to simply state that you only stand with Israel, it was difficult to hear.
Byrd says he then expressed support for Palestinians in Gaza on social media and in conversation with colleagues.
In an email to City Manager Luke Stowe, Byrd said the city should, quote, both support the people of Israel as well as Palestinian people who are both caught in a war beyond their control.
Since this mass killing of Palestinians has begun, not once has the government of Evanston, at its leadership, specifically acknowledged the pain and suffering of Palestinian community.
Things escalating at a November 30th meeting of Evanston's Equity and Empowerment Commission, discussing a ceasefire resolution that was eventually withdrawn.
I myself had nothing to do with the ceasefire resolution.
But according to the lawsuit, city leadership posted Byrd's name and email to the Equity and Empowerment Commission's website on November 21st, something NNN is working to verify with the city. Byrd says he received over 400 emails on the resolution in the days before the meeting, some of which, he says, attacked him personally.
There's a long history of this in Evanston, of black employees being mistreated, being the fall person, and I think I'm just the newest person.
The lawsuit says, quote, defendants realized the optics of firing Evanston's blackface of DEI over, quote, progressive social media posts would be problematic, but they had a plan. You feel that this was a intentional, carefully thought out effort to get you fired?
Absolutely. Some people were upset about the resolution, and behind the scenes, there was a story being told that somehow I was the person who was responsible.
We pressed Byrd and his lawyer for evidence that ties his termination to his pro-Palestinian stances.
I'm not going to discuss the evidence at this time. That's for we'll do that in court.
Byrd says the city fired him over Zoom at the end of December. According to the lawsuit, Byrd says City Manager Stowe told him it was because he was an at-will employee and would not go into specifics. Even still, Byrd's lawyer says,
But a person's stance on the conflict in Gaza cannot be used as a litmus test by the city of Evanston for employment.
Now, we still are hoping to hear from Mayor Biss and the other defendants in this lawsuit, but in the meantime, we got a statement from city spokesperson Jessie Mayo. She tells NNN in a statement, while the city of Evanston does not comment on pending litigation, we fully support First Amendment rights for all, including employees, and will vigorously defend against any claim to the contrary. In Evanston, Logan Schijano, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Logan. We'll keep following this story as it unfolds.
After Starbucks sued its union for voicing support for Palestinian rights on social media late last year, some people began boycotting the popular coffee chain. NNN's Caitlin Bender-Thomas has more on why some Northwestern students are joining in.
I have a firm belief that if you don't do anything, you're kind of contributing to the problem.
Second-year Jasmine Matowski says she used to work at a Starbucks back home, so Norbucks was a comfort spot. But since the company distanced itself from Workers United's pro-Palestine posts, she now goes to other cafes around campus, like Reprise Roasters in Main Library.
I just felt like since I am against the genocide that's happening to the Palestinians, that it was part of my duty to also boycott businesses that are in support of it.
While the company released a statement saying they condemn violence and don't fund any government or military operations, other students like Camille Nichols have started to make their own coffee, and she says boycotting the chain has been easier than expected.
My wallet definitely thanked me for it. Not spending so much money on coffee, especially if you wanted to add alternative milks and stuff.
But aside from the company's response to the war, some students say they won't feel comfortable buying from Starbucks again until they improve working conditions and support their unions.
Even if Starbucks were to come out in support of Palestine, I know that their relationship with their unions likely wouldn't change.
We've reached out to Compass Group to ask how the boycott has impacted sales, but we haven't heard back at this time. However, workers here did tell me that they had a lot less customers before winter break, and while they've seen traffic pick up a bit this month, it still isn't what it used to be. Caitlin Bender-Thomas, Northwestern News Network.
Starbucks Corporation has lost over $11 billion in market value since November, but it's unclear whether the decline is directly related to the boycotts.
Members of the Evanston community took to the wintry streets yesterday to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day. NNN's Angela Zhang shares how they're commemorating the civil rights icon while calling for local action.
Evanstonians braved the harsh winter to honor Martin Luther King Jr., using the holiday as a day of advocacy.
Neither snow nor sub-zero temperatures are stopping many community members from walking for warmth here in Evanston.
Interfaith Action and dozens of other faith groups hosted the annual MLK Day Walk for Warmth, residents hearing from pastors and taking part in a 2-mile march. But this year, they say the walk has a larger purpose, increasing affordable housing.
Our unhoused friends have to deal with this kind of weather all the time.
Residents pushing for warm shelter to be provided for the unhoused.
Martin Luther King had a real heart for the unhoused and for fair housing. This is one way to express solidarity.
Interfaith Action's Executive Director Susan Murphy Burby says the walk symbolizes how MLK Day is also a day of service.
Volunteers put on this Walk for Warmth. Volunteers help at the overnight shelter, they run the produce mobile, they do the soup kitchens.
Burby says it's this equality that must continue.
People shouldn't have to sleep outside ever, not in July and not in January.
Angela Zhang, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Angela. Meanwhile, the annual Northwestern Vigil honoring Dr. King was unfortunately postponed due to the weather. A new date will be announced soon. The MLK festivities continue this afternoon as Northwestern alum and New York Times bestselling author Jonathan Eig headlined the university's commemoration. Eig joined Medill School Dean Charles Whitaker earlier today for a conversation on the life and legacy of MLK. Eig earned a 2023 Chicagoan of the Year award from the Chicago Tribune and Chicago Magazine for his recent book, King: A Life.
Up next, what Northwestern is doing to educate students on the dangers of opioid overdoses and what they can do to stay safe. We will be right back after the break.
My narrative, since I've been locked up and kind of made my transition, has been like redemption, accountability.
When I come into the classroom environment, every individual that sits amongst me takes education seriously. Trying to work my way out of the prison system was the most difficult challenge of my life. It only became tangible once I became a Northwestern student.
One, two, three, four.
Ready, set, piano.
Welcome back. Well, it's not Maine or mud. The Evanston Public Library offers so much more than books. That was on display with the snow last week when EPL connected folks with social services and city agencies. As Jeremy Fredericks reports, EPL does it with a smaller budget compared to neighboring cities.
People I know include often in their first gift that they are shocked and appalled to learn how we are funded in Evanston at the Evanston Public Library at a fraction of our neighbors.
The Evanston Public Library's budget is mostly composed of tax money, with its board setting its own tax rate and final approval coming from the city. The current rate is about 3% of a property tax bill. It was kept flat during the pandemic, but increased 4% in 2023 and 9% this year. Even with that tax increase, Evanston still receives less funding per person than neighboring cities because it is a lower median property value. The Evanston Public Library only gets $93 per person, less than half of what neighboring cities like Wilmette and Northbrook receive.
We are a community that is exceptionally economically diverse, like relative to most of the other communities in our area.
The remainder of the budget is composed of endowments, grants, and donations, over $1 million in 2022.
I wouldn't say that without donations that our library would cease to exist, but what our dollars are able to provide through giving every year really helps us.
The library is working to increase donations with aims of topping $400,000 across online and in-person platforms.
We have many people walking in the door, reaching in their pockets, giving us $10, $50, $100.
Even though funding might take a little more effort in Evanston, the library is working to make the most of what it has, with programs like increasing youth literacy rates, employment help, and social services.
It's important to kind of note just how much we are able to do with the funding levels that we have.
Jeremy Fredericks, Northwestern News Network.
And Jeremy joins us now. You mentioned EPL gets a significant portion of their budget from donations, but what are those donations used for?
So they try to raise $400,000 in donations, and it's unrestricted, which means EPL can do whatever it wants with that funding. Last year they had about 1,200 donations, averaging $50 per mean. So a lot of the people come in and they give $10, $5, $20, $50, and they have a couple people that make big donations that help them get to that $400,000 goal.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jeremy.
President Michael Schill released his annual financial update last week. The university reporting a positive operating performance of $8.6 million on operating expenses of just over $3 billion. The university also marking its first year in which it awarded $1 billion in financial grants for research. This is a slight uptake from last year when the university handed out just under $1 billion. NU was not completely unaffected by market conditions, though. The university endowment dropped in a value for the second year in a row to $13.7 million. If this pattern continued, NU could have cut expenses in future years. Still, the endowment contributed 20% of last year's budget.
Northwestern's Health Promotion and Awareness Department, or HPAW, is offering all students Narcan and opioid overdose response training. Aria Wozniak is here to tell us more about the program.
With 2001 opioid overdose deaths in Cook County in 2022, education on overdose and response is receiving more attention on Northwestern's campus. This winter, HPAW is hosting hour-long Narcan and opioid overdose trainings, a program that started in the fall after an influx of requests from students. While several sessions are just for fraternity and sorority life, other trainings are open to all students.
We kind of start right with the basics like opioids 101. We talk about what are opioids, what are examples of it, and then we kind of go into how to address an opioid. So what are signs that someone can show when they're experiencing an overdose by opioids?
A student-run club called Team Awareness Combating Overdose, also known as TACO, is working with HPAW to help get students trained.
And one of them said they just did a Narcan training and they went to Coachella and they ended up using it. So you never really know when you're going to come across someone who's overdosing on fentanyl or a different opioid.
Students leave the training with a box of Narcan, fentanyl test strips, and a face shield, which is used for CPR.
Basically blow through here, and then it would be able to push air into that person's lungs as well, because suppressed breathing is one of those big signs and symptoms if someone is experiencing that overdose as well.
Fentanyl test strips are also constantly available on campus at Searle Hall, Norris, area desks, or the Fraternity and Sorority Life office.
And then TACO will also be doing weekly distributions. We'll have a little stand and candy and stuff like that in case picking it up in front of somewhere else might be a little more intimidating.
Information about where and when TACO distributes the strips is posted on their Instagram. Aria Wozniak, Northwestern News Network.
Training sign-up, locations, and times can be found on the Northwestern events calendar page.
After a long weekend of bitter cold, students braving sub-zero temperatures to attend class. Stay tuned for the latest weather updates after the break.
My relationship with Giannis is unique. We're from the same country, we're from the same city. Being a Northwestern alum, I think, has tremendous advantages in the sports industry. To me, that community, it's been with me for 20 plus years.
Ready, set, yellow.
Welcome back. We talked all about the cold at the top of the show, but is it going away anytime soon? Let's check in with NNN's Micah Sandy for the latest forecast.
Good evening. I'm currently by the Lincoln Street Beach, which over the weekend became a site of a lot of water vapor coming up from the lake. You might see a bit now, but not as much as this weekend since it's currently turning to ice. Ice can be seen throughout campus, a little bit here by the edges, and it's bitter cold. It burns your hands. Don't recommend being outside. As of noon today, the National Weather Service has issued a wind chill advisory through 9 a.m. tomorrow. Tomorrow will be mostly cloudy, a continuation of bitter cold, but not as sharp as we welcome back double digits highs and lows. About an inch or two of snow is to be expected between Thursday and Friday, with cold and little to no accumulation Thursday. Friday morning flurry will mark a return to bitter cold for today. Frigid with sunshine and clouds Saturday before a warmer, partly sunny Sunday. More precipitation is to be expected next week, so don't store your umbrellas quite yet. Dress in layers, make use of that frostbite shuttle, and stay warm. Back to you.
Thanks, Micah.
As millions in the Midwest stayed home to evade the frigid temperatures, Northwestern's men's basketball team left Welsh Ryan for 2 matchups against the Penn State Nittany Lions and the Wisconsin Badgers. First, NU defeated Penn State 76-72 on Wednesday. Junior Brooks Barnheiser led all scorers with 23 points, and star point guard Boo Buie dished out 8 assists. Despite winning by only 4 points, the Cats shot the 3-ball exceptionally well at 58%. It marked the first Cats victory in Happy Valley since the 2016-2017 season. Heading over to the Cats' northern neighbor, the Wildcats had a Saturday matinee with number 15 Wisconsin. The Wildcats and Badgers were neck and neck all game long until Northwestern had some poor shot selection and turnovers down the stretch that cost them the game, losing 63-71. The Cats also shot abysmal from the 3-point range and were out-rebounded 31-25. As for the women, they went 1-1 last week, winning a tight contest to Wisconsin and then suffering a 41-point loss to Illinois. The Wildcats shot just 27% from the field and were out-rebounded by 11 in the Illinois game. The Cats also turned the ball over 13 times, something that's been an issue for them all year. The men look to make some changes on both sides of the ball before they face the Maryland Terrapins tomorrow, a team that just defeated number 10 Illinois on the road.
In a groundbreaking development, a team of Northwestern University researchers has unveiled a new fuel cell that draws energy from microbes living in soil. According to a news release, the technology has the potential to fuel underground sensors used in green infrastructure and precision agriculture, and all in a device about the size of a standard paperback book. To test the soil-powered fuel cell's abilities, researchers used it to power sensors that measure soil moisture and detect touch. What sets the fuel cell apart is its ability to work in both wet and dry conditions. It can also outlast similar technologies by 120%. This tech is also more accessible. All of its components can be purchased at a local hardware store.
Coming up, the 81st Dolphin Show makes a splash this weekend and next. We dive into the show after the break.
My narrative, since I've been locked up and kind of made my transition, has been like redemption, accountability.
When I come into the classroom environment, every individual that sits amongst me takes education seriously.
Welcome back. Northwestern's 81st Annual Dolphin Show hits Conn Auditorium this weekend, presenting Kinky Boots the Musical. NNN's Kunjal Bastola takes us behind the scenes of what makes this year's show so special.
A tradition spanning 81 years, Northwestern's annual Dolphin Show is the largest student-produced musical in the country. This year's show, a performance of Kinky Boots the Musical.
They chose a story this year with Kinky Boots that celebrates queerness, that celebrates vibrancy and dance and life.
Fourth-year Mateos Barbie plays Lola, a drag queen who meets Charlie, a boy who has just inherited his father's shoe factory. And together, they work to save the factory.
I think this show is so special for me because it is so rare that someone like me, a Black queer man, gets to step into a role that celebrates those things so profoundly and is unapologetic about how important those things are to the character's identity.
Director Alexa Goldstein hoping the story resonates with the audience.
It is a story of acceptance and of celebration and of finding commonalities between people.
Over 150 students working together since last February to put on the show.
So it really is like the amalgamation of so many hardworking people here on campus who are from all different backgrounds coming together to put on the show.
Building connections on campus and in the Evanston community.
It's a really important message that's going to resonate with so many people.
Opening this Friday, the show will take place right here in Conn Auditorium, a celebration of identity, joy, and finding common ground. Kunzo Basola, Northwestern News Network.
Tickets are $10 and can be bought at the Northwestern box office website, where you can find also a list of show dates and times. So I really loved the Dolphin Show last time I saw it. What's your favorite show to watch, Alexia?
Yeah, so I did go to the Dolphin Show my freshman year. Didn't go last year, but my favorite theater show ever is definitely The Lion King on Broadway.
That's a really good one. I know we were just talking about this, but Kinky Boots is such a good show to watch in person. Definitely go.
Good to know. I'll definitely head over this weekend. I feel like it's a good plan.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have for tonight on the Northwestern News Report. I'm Alexia Cadota-Browner.
And I'm Ananya Chug. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful evening and stay warm.